pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Again, good morning. Considerations of agenda items. Any additions or corrections to the agenda? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Motion by Commissioner Kruger. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Szymanski. Any discussion? Hearing none, proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Consent agenda.
Move to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Polmeyer. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Wright. Any discussion? Hearing none, proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. McLeod County Government Center update. Good morning, gentlemen. Reminder, the mics are quite finicky, so don't worry, we'll remind you if you don't
I was
remember.
just going to say, we're getting better at it.
Okay.
Good morning. On the budget end of the project, commissioners, I don't actually have a ton to update again, which is good news on that end. You know, we would just keep the status quo, and probably more than anything, we just chat a little bit about schedule, and unless there are questions on any budget stuff, I guess, but we'll get
All
into
right.
the fun stuff. We'll have Sam chat a little bit more about schedule and what's progressing on site.
Well, currently, first floor concrete is 100% complete. The crews are finishing the second floor structural steel. That's about 75% complete with the decking and scheduled to be poured in 2 weeks. Masonry walls are scheduled to begin next week.
Mr. Chair, I can't hear.
Second,
You're going to have to
second
speak up or
floor,
grab both mics.
Please speak louder if you would.
second floor concrete will be wrapped up the week of the 17th. And electrical rough-in has begun, and mechanical and framing is scheduled to begin on the 24th. Any questions on schedule?
What was the last?
The framing and the mechanical rough-in is scheduled for the 24th,
24th
Yep.
of February?
February.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
All right.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
as long as you're here. You have your various subcontractors working on the project. Everything is coordinating according to plan. Things are moving smoothly.
Yes, things are moving very smoothly.
All right. Okay.
Or not. Kind of the next thing I know Sam's working on, we have some layout we got to figure out on second floor with the mechanical or the electrical rough-in for the furniture is our kind of next piece of the puzzle. But yeah, no, by kind of the end of the month here, Sam's hoping to have most of that stud work up, so when you walk through the space, you can see all the rooms, both floors, and then we'll get into more of that kind of that skylight cupola type construction. Will take a little more time when we're going through that. But it's moving along nicely, and the structure is progressing well, so it's exciting because now you're starting to see that whole thing take shape.
Good. We'd be anxious to come in and take a look, but not when you're in the middle of pouring concrete.
Absolutely, no problem.
Put your handprint in it.
Yeah. You can put your initials in it, Ron.
Footprints.
All right. All right. Thank you for the update.
Yes, appreciate it.
Thanks.
All right. The next item on the agenda is the Glencoe Transportation Plan. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Lindsay Brewer. I'm the District 8 Planning Director and was the project manager for this plan. So
Lindsay, can you bring both mics together and see if that helps a little? There you go.
Sure. So I came before you as we started the plan to give you an idea of what the goals were and what we were planning to do, and now we are wrapping it up, so wanted to present the results and talk through the executive summary, which I believe was included in your packet. So as a reminder, the plan studied the route of Highway 22. We looked at the intersections along Highway 212 for safety improvements. We looked at access management on 212 and specifically on the east side of Glencoe. And then we also looked at roadway ownership and any changes that would have to be made with a new Highway 22 route. There were four main goals of the study: to improve safety at intersections, improve safety for bicyclists and pedestrians, look at access, and look at the Route of 22 and other options. We did quite a bit of public engagement with this plan, and I hope you all were able to make it to some of our open houses or focus groups or participate in some of our online surveys. And we did hear, we got some great feedback from the community about what their priorities were, and we incorporated those into this plan. So the recommendations are included in the executive summary, starting on page 4. I'll start with the intersections along Highway 212, because those are our first priority, and they have to do with safety. So starting at Chandler Avenue, what we're recommending is a J-turn, or a reduced conflict intersection. And then at Morningside Drive and Highway 212, we are recommending a roundabout. Both of those, we have applied for special safety funds, the HSIP funding, just this winter, and we hope to find out whether or not they were funded by this spring. If they are funded, the timeline for construction is probably 2023 or 2024. If they're not funded, we will continue to seek funding for both of those intersections. Moving to the east, recommendations after looking at our access management, and MnDOT's access management spacing guidelines are a half mile for full intersections and then a quarter mile for restricted intersections or right in, right out. So we, looking at Falcon Avenue and County Road 69, they didn't quite meet the spacing guidelines, so our recommendations are in working with the city to leave Falcon Avenue as is, as a full access intersection, but close the median at County Road 69 to do a right in, right out. And that helps for flow on the freeway as well as just reducing, safety concerns about traffic entering and exiting. So that's, those were the recommendations as far as the intersections go. The next page of the executive summary just has a little bit more information about roundabouts and J-turns and the success of them in Minnesota. I will mention that since the J-turns have been installed in Minnesota, we have not seen a single fatal crash at any of the intersections where they were installed. So, the statistics around intersection improvements, I mean, you can't get better than 100%. So I know there are, some concerns about J-turns, but really they've been very effective in Minnesota and very cost effective too. And then as we turn to Highway 22, so this study, I know there was some hope that we would recommend a single route for Highway 22, and in our committee, and Doug was on that, and John, we talked a bit about, this study was at a pretty high level. The data that we analyzed to narrow down the routes is, comes from data sets versus actual field sampling or core samples or wetland delineation. So that would be the next step to narrow these down further. This was just giving us a good idea at some of the higher level impacts. And so 4 key routes have been identified for further study, and 2 of them are to the east, so routes 2 and 3, utilizing County Road 3 and 1, and then County Road 3 and Morningside. And then Route 7 that remains uses most of the existing alignment of 22, and then Chandler Avenue in town. And then Route 5 is a new alignment to the west. So the next step for the Highway 22 route would be to do the environmental documentation. That's where you drill in a little bit deeper to that next level of detail to find out more about these routes and the feasibility. Those are the main recommendations and findings from the study. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
I guess, Doug, anything you want to weigh in on here?
Just more for clarification, that environmental impact study, I know that's quite expensive, and, you know, it has, and it's always been a question at our meetings, we've picked 4 routes, and the environmental study has to be done on all the routes. If a person could get down to 1 or 2 routes, would that save money on that impact study?
No, the environmental documentation is outlined through NEPA, the federal law, and we cannot identify a single route as when you start that process. That would be kind of predetermining the process, and so you have to have several options viable to even enter that process.
But that process could eliminate a route or two either.
Definitely,
Okay.
because that process, you know, so we just looked at high-level data sets. We didn't do like field sampling, and
Okay.
when you get into that work, you'd go out and take cores, you do wetland delineations. You just do a lot more work than what this study was able to do.
And quite honestly, I mean, these routes were driven by public input too. I mean, that's what we had all our meetings for, so.
Yep, public input, the data that we have, some high-level scoping of our staff. Yep.
All right, thank you. No, I don't, unless the rest of the board does,
I think Commissioner Szymanski has a
Mr. Chair.
question.
Yes, thank you. Ms. Brewer, I guess the question on my mind is, we're looking for a permanent solution to a Highway 22 route. Are we open at all to the concept of having a provisional route? What I'm looking at is route number 7, which would bring Highway 22 down Chandler Avenue.
Mm-hmm.
Could that be, because we've already got 2 access points into Glencoe on Highway 212 right now, and I'm thinking if we could use that as a provisional route for the time being until this final determination is made, is there advantage or disadvantage to doing something in that order rather than, you know, waiting another 10 or 20 years till all the environmental studies are done?
Sure. Well, I think MnDOT would definitely be open to maybe an interim or a short-term and long-term solution. However, specifically, Chandler might not work very well. As we looked into it further, we don't believe that the city street structure underneath the pavement can really support highway traffic. So we believe that we would need to fully reconstruct those couple blocks of Chandler Avenue to support highway traffic. And our estimates right now of what we've been reconstructing, you know, downtown pavements for is about $1 million a block, so that gets to be really expensive. So it was
You said $1 million a block?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, you know, on the surface, it looks like a really good option, but, you know, when it has to, you know, the pavement would probably crumble right away given freeway traffic on it. And so it's probably not, a short-term option for us at this
Okay.
time.
All right, thank you
But
for
there
answering
might be
that.
others, you know, the county roads would be able to hold up to freeway traffic. They're built for it, so that could be an option.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Mike.
Ms. Brewer, did you consider or did the group consider the possibility of lining it up and going further west yet than option number 5 and lining it up with 22 as it enters in from the west side?
We did. We had several options further to the west that we started out analyzing. Those options got fairly expensive. Even using some existing county roads or township roads, there's a lot of rework to do. Also, when we looked at the travel demand, even though the contiguous route of 22 goes to the south and west, the actual travel patterns of people using 22, most are heading to the east into the metro. And so it was a question of, who are the users and how are they using the route? And there were 2 distinct different, users of the Highway 22 route, the commercial users and then the freight users, and they kind of use it differently. So we, it's hard to know what to do when it has different users.
Thank you.
All right. Commissioner Kruger, do you have something?
Yes, just listening to Mr. Young and the question from Commissioner Szymanski. How do we balance, I mean, you're from the state, we're obviously county, and, you know, some, like number 7, for instance, what Mr. Szymanski was talking about basically is in the city. Who carries the most weight? Or is it all data-driven? I mean, who carries the most weight on where this route's going to go? I mean, if we go out on 3, then we have a lot of county property, or even 2 for that matter. But if it stays within the city, then it's mostly city. I mean, is it all data-driven, or is it just, does anybody carry a little bit more weight on whichever route you choose? Do you understand where I'm going here?
Yeah, I think from our perspective, you know, the data can help inform us of the decision, but from MnDOT's perspective, we would want to reach a solution collaboratively with the city and the county. But as far as, you know, say, like routes 2 or 3 that are on the county road, I mean, the way that it would work is that MnDOT would take ownership of that road, and then we would probably swap a little bit of the existing alignment with the county. So actually, MnDOT would end up owning more miles of the system, so.
Thank you. No, I didn't really mean it that way.
Oh,
I mean, I
okay.
get how we can shift and
Yep.
roads to, I mean, I get that, but is there an influence based on choosing a route before before you actually start doing that with roads? Does the city carry more weight in picking 5 or 7, let's just for the sake of conversation, than picking 2 or 3? Or is it just data driven? Is it we just put the data together and one comes to the top? Or
So that goes back to having to work through that environmental process, which also involves stakeholder, so city, county,
Sure.
MnDOT, and public engagement. So it's really a mix of both.
Mix of all.
Yep.
just wanted to clear
Yeah.
that up a little
And
bit.
through that process, you learn a lot more. You know, you get a lot further detail and about each of the options too. Again, we studied this at a pretty high level.
Well, when I get my calls too, let's just, for instance, use County Road 3 because it's the most mileage. That road would not be County Road 3 if that became that would be a State Highway 22.
Correct. Yep.
That's what I was trying
MnDOT
to,
would take it over, we'd pay for,
right,
you know, the improvements and,
okay,
yep.
very good.
Ron, do you have something more?
Yeah, Ms. Brewer, no matter which option we choose, we've got a railroad crossing to deal with, correct?
Correct.
All right, and the other concern I have is route number 2 is on County Road 15, Morningside Drive. Proximity to the high school and, you know, increased traffic in the school zone is another concern that I would express.
Yep, it is. Yep.
All right,
All right,
thank you.
all right, very good. Obviously, no action needed from us, correct?
Right.
All right,
Yep.
well, thank you for the update.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lindsay.
If we do get funding for the 2 intersections, you know, we hope to find out this spring and we'll let you know.
Thank
All
you.
right, thank you. All right, we're to the point of our agenda where we will have a public hearing regarding the 2020 committee list review and discussion. Is there a motion to open the public hearing? So moved. Motion by Commissioner Wright. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Polmeyer. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I'll tee this up just a little bit. As we do every year, we discuss our committee list. Through that discussion, it evolves into who's on what committee, what appointments need to be made, what commissioners will serve on them, what members of the community will serve on them, what appointments need to be made, who's moving, who hasn't. And through that discussion this year, well, probably, this is my 6th year, probably every year, but it seemed to focus on that this year a little bit more, was the number of committees we have and how often they're called up and how often are they used? Can they be combined with other committees? Where are we at with that? 2 committees were spoke about probably more often than others. It was the Environmental Services Committee, not to be confused with the SWAC Committee, and the Trails Committee. We sent notice to every member of any committee of this meeting today. And that was the purpose, and we do have pretty good attendance probably because of that. We'll probably focus on those two committees that I mentioned as far as whether or not to combine them with others, dissolve them as a whole, or leave them the same. That'll probably be the main focus of today. Not that we won't accept some conversation about other committees, whether that should happen with those, but that's really what has happened in our workshops over the last few months as we've discussed committees. As in any public hearing, we try to run it as loose as we can, but with some organization. So if you do have some comments, we will open it up. Try to keep it to 3 minutes, unless a board member has some direct questions for you. Try to keep it on topic. I won't pick up the gavel, but I will ask you to stay on point as we go through that. With that, unless any board members want to talk before I move on, I guess I would like to start with the Environmental Services Committee. I'd like Mr. Teletsky to give a little background to that committee and start from there.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So in regards to the Environmental Services Committee, that was a combination of several committees, and I don't have the exact date. I want to say 2014, 2015. That board was merged to deal with wetland review, to deal with local water management planning, AIS, and due to that combination, there's been many factors that have occurred over the last 3 to 5 years. One watershed, one plan is a concept that has come down from the state. And it's more of a regional approach in regards to watershed management. So with that being said, this combination of this board needs to be looked at. Wetlands, we have had joint powers agreements with our SWCD, and SWCD, and Ryan is here today, they have picked up that ball, so to speak, in regards to handling our wetlands and our wetland review. And this committee would be responsible for that, so that's another reason why we need to look at the composition of this committee. Looking through that committee, we have representation of a number of ex officio staff that are appointed to that committee. Typically, those ex officio staff can be invited as needed. It's not something that we need as a standing appointment. So in regards to the Environmental Services Committee, we need to look at the composition, what the responsibilities of that committee are. I am in full favor of keeping that committee, but we need to look at what that composition is. One of the things that have been brought to our office is in regards to AIS. Generating a competitive grant application for our lake associations to access our funds. We have something that's fairly generic. We're trying to expand that. Currently finished an application this morning that'll be coming to committee for review. So that's something that we need to get into the context of this committee to make recommendations to you in the event that we do get an application to access those funds. So Environmental Services Committee over the years has evolved. We still have a feedlot committee. That feedlot committee would not be merged into this Environmental Services Committee. Right now, I don't know what this committee's responsibilities would be in regards to the One Watershed, One Plan. We're currently working through 2 of them. We've adopted the North Fork, which Commissioner Kruger has sat on. We're working through the Lower Minnesota West Watershed, which encompasses a few of our townships to the south. Once we adopt these plans and we have a plan that we can act on, we can work with Bowser, the state, Board of Water and Soil Resources, to truly understand what the county's responsibility is in regards to advising for that plan, because there is a larger group, working group, that would be responsible for implementation of that plan, a policy committee as well as advisory board. So just trying to work through that a little bit and understand, what the local responsibilities for that overall plan would be. So if there's any other questions from the board, I'd be happy to answer that. It is a committee that has gone through some change. We didn't meet last year at all. And moving forward, there will be a need for us to have that committee to make recommendations to you.
Talk to me a little bit more about the Lake Association piece of it, please.
Yeah, so one of the things, that AIS piece, we receive AIS dollars from the state. Currently, those AIS dollars are sitting in an AIS general fund.
What does AIS stand
Aquatic
for?
invasive species. Thank you.
What does AIS stand for?
Aquatic invasive species. Thank you. So with that being said, those dollars are sitting in there, and they're meant to go back towards fighting or preventing the spread of aquatic invasives, zebra mussels, curly-leaf pondweed, milfoil. Those are typically what you hear in regards to aquatic invasive. And there has been some interest from lake associations to have a seat on that committee, and then also have an opportunity to be able to access some of those funds to either do some prevention or to tackle some of the issues that they are seeing.
Okay. All right. All right. Any questions from the board for Mark right now?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
What kind of funds are you talking about on a grant basis each year? And are they coming from the DNR?
They're appropriated, yes, they are coming from the DNR. They're appropriated by the legislature, and they're distributed through the DNR. They have an aquatic invasive task force, if you will, through the DNR. And there is reporting that we have to do on those dollars. They do require a percentage of those dollars for education and outreach, which we currently do, but trying to get some of those dollars back, boots on the ground, so to speak, to our lake associations to work as a partnership with us is very important.
All right, thank you. I realize that the conversation from the public may blend from committee to committee, but in an effort to try to stay organized here, is there any members of the public that wish to specifically speak about the Environmental Services Committee after they heard from Mark, the staff member? All right, then I think we'll talk about the Trails Committee a little bit. Al, do you want to give a little bit of a history on that for us? Good morning.
Good morning. Trails Committee was formed back in 2015 to help us formulate a master plan for trails, also to formulate a Dakota Trails plan, and then we also started talking about the engineering, a pre-engineering report. It consists of 11 commissioners, 2 from each, or 11 voting members, 2 from each district, and then 1 from the county Township Association. We've started in May of 15, and then I think the last time we met was in 18 or 17. So it helped us formulate these couple of master plans, and then we went on from there to apply for some legacy grants. So one we were successful with, the other one we haven't been. So.
Thank you. Any questions for Al before we let him go back?
Just before you sit down, would you, as long as you are also on the Parks and Committee, could you just, I know they're 2 separate committees, but could you just, as long as you're at the podium, would you just talk about your Parks Committee too, as long as you're up there?
The Parks Committee represents, there's 5 voting members on that, and then we have Mr. Szymanski is on it as a commissioner. We meet 3-4 times a year to go over park matters development, setting up, looking at ordinance changes and things like that. I think that's, like playground equipment, trails, things like that we've been talking about over the years.
General maintenance to the shower, to the showers and
The big
bathhouses.
issue we had for the last couple of years was remodeling the Petenburg bathrooms, and now we've got that done. So we worked on that for a few years. So.
All right, anything else from Al? All right, if anybody would like to come to the podium and speak specifically about the Trails Committee, that would be good. Or, I guess at this point, anybody would like to come to the podium and speak about the committees as a whole, that would be fine. Okay, you need to come to the podium and give us your name. Sorry for repeating myself. The mics are awful finicky, so pull them towards you, and that'd be great.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Linda Weckman.
Speak up as much as you can.
My name is Linda Weckman. I live on Cedar Lake, and I would have a question about the legacy or the funds that are received for the trail system.
Okay.
Can you give me an outline of how those monies come to the trails, who's responsible for paying them back, and that type of thing? I don't think I quite understand the legacy money.
Okay. Al, I don't know if you want to come up and maybe stay up here and give that outline.
Let's have have him come up here and use my microphone.
Okay.
So that we can actually hear him.
Did you hear the question, Al?
Legacy money was formulated by the state a few years ago. The money is, I always take in point if a dollar, the state government set legacy money like for arts and crafts and, you know, all the different groups. For the parks, they designated, I'm just going to use an example, $1. Out of that $1, 40 cents of the dollar goes to the metro area, 40 cents of the dollar goes to the DNR, and then Greater Minnesota gets 20 cents of that. Like last year, we applied for a grant for the second phase of the Dakota Trail, and there was 28 projects that were asked for, and they only funded, I think, 9 of them for just under $10 million. I could give the exact figure, but so it's a very competitive thing. There is no payback. We receive that money, we don't have to pay it back. Anything else? You have to be.
You can stay up there, ma'am. That's fine.
For us to get it, we have to be a regional facilities. That's why we had the Dakota Rail as a regional trail. If a park wants to, we have to be regionally dedicated. The DNR has a different process when they give out funding.
Okay. I guess I have one more question, but I'm not sure that you are able to answer it, but I'm going to give it to you anyway. Now, there has been a park that has been established up at Greenleaf, and I would like to know how does that park system and the trails that were talked about from that park, how does that affect the people in McLeod County, Oklahoma Township, that type of thing? How are those trails going to connect up with the Dakota Trail system? Because we have no way of, we have not seen any real plans about how the system is going to connect up and where it's going, that type of thing.
That's a DNR project. McLeod County has not been really involved, at least I have not been involved other than going to meetings that they've had. That I would think was probably funded through legacy money too, that the DNR received from over the years. I know there was also some donated money on that project.
Al, forgive me, but I think Commissioner Szymanski might have something to add to that too.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Greenleaf Recreation Area is a DNR funded facility. Okay. Representative Dean Erdahl was instrumental in getting that designated as a state recreational area. The discussion about a trail connecting the Greenleaf Park potentially to the Loose Line Trail took place, back years ago when I was in the legislature. We had talked about that, but it's pretty much a DNR facility, both the Loose Line and the Greenleaf recreational area. So I think those types of questions would be better addressed to our state legislators.
Okay. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to address the board regarding the committees?
I just want to follow up, because Al brought up the legacy funding. Real brief, my opinion is it's another sign of where the metro area got favored heavily and Greater Minnesota had to take a back seat. But I do have the list in front of me as to those counties that were accepted within the round of funding, which we were not. As Al said, there was just under $10 million in that. Olmsted County Park received $2.1 million. Goodhue County Park received $1.3 million. Sandstone Robinson Park, not sure where that one's at. That was $900,000. Douglas County Park, $930,000. St. Cloud Beaver Island Trail, $900,000. Otter County Trail, Perham and Pelican Rapids, $1.8 million. LeSueur County Washington Park, almost $1 million. Cannon Valley Trail is $500,000, and Wright County Regional Trail, $400,000. It was stated within the paperwork that came back we were not successful in our application because we did not put any matching dollars in, as well as guarantee hard surface.
Okay. Anyone else that wish to address the board regarding the public hearing regarding the committees?
Mr. Chair.
Doug, go ahead, and Tom, why don't you come up and you can be ready.
Al, before you sit down, the legacy money shows up all over the place. I just heard Commissioner Wright read off the list. Now, that was specifically to trails, But I mean, in everything, water, I go all over. Legacy money shows, parts of it show up through the DNR or whatever, so I just don't want people to get, so just like you got done addressing that lady, these legacy funds show up all over, but there's different avenues of legacy money.
Yeah, and I don't have the exact information on where all the money goes. I would think if you look into through the state capitol, that they would have the breakdown of where and how much is brought in every year. I think there's 15 years left of the legacy.
Yeah, the legacy fund runs until, I believe, 2033.
Yep.
It was voted in as a constitutional amendment to run for 25 years and started in 2008, so.
And then there's always designated for certain things, like every year or Mr. Erdahl has to fight to get the 20% to the greater Minnesota area of that, I say 20 cents, but 20% that, because the Met Council and the DNR want that money. So we have to fight really hard to get it. So Mr. Erdahl has been doing a great service on that.
Yeah. Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I could give you a whole long history lesson on the whole process, but
Yeah.
I'll spare you that today.
Right now, we're on schedule, so we're about to fall behind. But Tom, go ahead and come on up.
Tom Dahl, Tacoma Township. Just making sure that you understand two things. One, I don't fully understand the board's intent. You guys do, okay? But I just want to make sure that you go through a process that's very open and decision-making so that the perception of the public matches what your intent was, okay? Because I hear a lot of feedback already coming that it's to shrink it and get people off of committees and not have to listen to so much negative, I'll say it that way, responses on your committees. So just communicate well your intent and what the reason is. And the other thing is I'd like to request that Paul Wright serve on the Hutch Joint Planning with us again. So if that's possible.
I think he's on the list, and
Yeah.
that's what we're doing, Tom. We don't have to have a public hearing, right?
Right.
We didn't have to have one. We could have moved forward without it, but it was important to us, the entire board, that we do this, to have that transparent approach. The intent is to get the feedback, and the intent, I think I laid out, that we think we have maybe too many committees, and these two got brought up, that maybe they could be blended into other ones. So,
Right.
but I appreciate your comments.
And even though you didn't, I don't know if you have a committee on this recycling thing, where you're going through and re-looking at all of those things, but I appreciate that Mark Pilecki came to our board meeting and explained that, and the people at our meeting turned around and gave feedback. I forget, Mark, 2, 3, or 4 items that they were concerned about. So
Keep speaking into the microphone.
yeah, there was 3 or 4 things that were given back to Mark, even though there isn't a committee. So we appreciate that you would have staff come to that to get that feedback. That's important to us.
And we appreciate the invite, too.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, Tom.
right.
Mr. Chair, can I just...
Yep.
The trail committee, it's in the papers, it's been around, I mean, it's brought up a lot. So I'll just jump into that one. It was always my understanding that the function of the trail committee was to develop the master plan. And I've asked for the last 2 years, why is it continuing to meet when the plan is done? And quite honestly, if they were to change the plan, we'd have to have a hearing process. That's all laid out. That's what has to happen. I don't think any of us are real anxious to have to go through that process again. We all have phone numbers. We all have email addresses. We work with our constituents. That is what drives a lot of our decision making on if we want to pursue any of the elements that are within that master trail plan. In my opinion, now that that plan is established and approved, it comes down to our budgets and what people are telling us. Probably more so than an advisory committee at this point, because we control the budget. And if we want to use our own money, if we want to use the county's funds, then we can, there aren't a lot of strings attached, I guess. But if we want to apply for legacy funds, and so we don't have to take so much out of our own vault, if you want to call it that, or budgets, then there are hoops. And just like we found out We did not have matching dollars within Legacy, and Greater Minnesota Trails seems to want the paved trail system, and that's what you have to have. We're right on the Dakota here now. We all know that. We have an option to do absolutely nothing, or we can do something with it. We know that there are crossings that are not there. It's not safe for anybody to walk, bike, snowmobile, or any way to use that. We know that there are tile lines that are in need of repair, and our last application was all about making the crossings crossable and fixing tile lines, paying a lot of attention to private property rights, and we found out that we got zero out of that. If we would choose to pay that $500,000 out of county funds, we could go ahead and start tomorrow, but that was not what we wanted to do. We wanted to tap Legacy because it seems to be, that's what happens when you have competitive grants all over the place, is you compete with others. And I read off the list of those that were successful, and we were not. And so, in my opinion, it comes down to what board members want to use our budgets for and what people are telling us in terms of just public interaction.
Okay, well, now's the time to speak up.
Donald Albrecht, and I'm basically representing the Township Association and myself. First, I want to thank the board for sending the letter out of today's meeting to those individuals that had the opportunity to serve on committees in the past and probably sitting on committees right now. We've had the discussion at the workshop back in, I believe it was April of 2019, where the Township Association basically sits on the committees. Just to review that for the public, previous commissioners felt it was important to have membership on some of these committees that were not basically appointed by the commissioners themselves, to have an outside person sitting on certain committees. At that time, the townships were allotted membership to a number of the committees. The association chose a member to sit on that as a representative representing the townships. I would, as we see today, there is no formal document showing what you plan on doing with your committees, and we realize that all of these committees serve at the pleasure of the county board. They decide who they want on the committees and how they want them set up, and we have no problem with that. We just ask that you look for some outside interests that can serve on these committees. I look forward to the meeting following this. I'm assuming you're going to get into a discussion what you plan on doing now after this public hearing. But at this point in time, I think the commissioners know where I'm coming from previous meetings, and I just ask you to keep that in mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. Thank you. Anyone else? All right.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I just wanted to weigh in here a little bit too. Since I became a commissioner, I looked at the committees and I questioned them. I questioned some of them right away when I looked through the books and how many times we used committees. This isn't all about either about combining committees or getting rid of a committee. It's also, in my mind, they serve at the commissioner's pleasures, but they need. We may have to spend more money, whether it's ditches or a recycling. You can't have a committee sitting there for a whole year or two and never get involved, whether it's feedlots or anywhere else. I think we need to discuss whether we want to have workshops where we pay them their per diems in order to be up to speed to advise us as commissioners. I mean, you have to, it's not as easy anymore as just coming to a meeting and just out of a whim not liking something, or I think it should be this way, without knowing what the laws are. So that for me, that's part of where we are here today, or trying to get input on it. If we're going to have these committees, we're going to have to spend some taxpayer dollars in making sure that the people that serve on these committees
All right. Seeing no one else from the public walking up to the podium, is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Motion by Commissioner Szymanski. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Polmeyer. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Because there'll probably be some movement from the crowd, we'll take 10 minutes and let everybody reset themselves. So please take them into the hallway. All right, Auditor Treasurer's report. Good morning, Connie.
Good morning. So today I'm here for 2 items. Is this volume okay? Yes. Okay. The first is item A, consider approval of ARCA Search Option A, digital preservation of vital records, and Option E, digital preservation of birth records proposals to preserve the McLeod County Vitals records and add the public records to the existing McLeod County research site for a cost of $89,715 to come from the County Auditor Treasurer and County Recorder modernization budgets. McLeod County Vitals, birth, marriage, and death records currently exist only in book form, and public data documents are available to the public in the historic original books within the License Center. So ARCA Search is a company that is already partnered with our McLeod County Recorder's Office. They specialize in digital preservation and backup protection from natural disasters and general deterioration of historical original books. The images will be scanned on-site in Glencoe at the North Complex, and once digitized, the high-resolution color images are hosted and web searchable by index or full-text search. This process will improve the License Center staff efficiency in preparation for our move and enhance the transition to the McLeod County Government Center and public access.
All right, any questions for Connie?
Yeah, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Yeah, Connie, is there a time frame that this is semi-expected to happen in?
We are hoping, originally we met with this gentleman, David Frank, in November, and we're hoping that he'll be able to start in April as soon as our PNP election is over and be able to get that accomplished this year.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Szymanski?
Connie, the data that they're digitizing here for us is, I think they're giving us 2 copies of whatever they produce. Is that correct?
What do you mean by 2 copies?
All the digital records, they're going to be put on some storage type media. Is that my understanding, or?
Right, they'll be hosted on their site, and then we do have to pay a maintenance fee each year for that, which Lynette has also said that she would help with the funding.
So they'll house the data on their server?
Yes.
Will we have a backup in our archive someplace as well?
I don't know about that, I guess. If Lynette has one? Do you have a? She said yes, they do have a backup copy.
Okay, all right, because I mean, it would be terrible if, if their server went down, crashed, and, we lost all of our data in their system. So I know we want to have some redundancy as well.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, anything else? It's the pleasure of the board.
Hold on, Don's got it.
Oh. It's not a public hearing, Don, but sure, come on up. Is it really? Come on up.
Please come up. My question is, who owns the data once this company records it all? Are we going to be paying a fee to get our data back every year? And the other thing is, what happens to the original documents once the data has been recorded? Do they stay here, or are they going to the Historical Society?
The data is still owned by McLeod County. It's just hosted there on their site. It is the public data that will be scanned in and digitized. And then I think your last question was the original historical documents will still be maintained at the McLeod County Government Center. We have space available for that.
Okay. Thanks, Connie.
What's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the contract with ARCA Search for options A and E.
Motion by Commissioner Szymanski. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Wright. Any discussion? Hearing none, proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And B?
Okay, yes, my second item B is to consider the appointment of Alan Kerber to the viewing team to redetermine benefits and damages on County Ditch 5, and consider clarifying a previous appointment to John Dodolo to be an alternate viewer on County Ditch 5. So this dates back to October of 2016 when these viewers were appointed. We had determined that the original benefits or damages did not reflect reasonable present-day land values according to Minnesota Statute Chapter 103E, Section 103E.351. One viewer, as appointed to County Ditch 5 redetermination of benefits and damages, is an alternate on the system. Viewers as appointed previously to remain on the system include Ron Rehnquist, Joe Jacobs, and Brad Wick.
Mr. Chair, I move the appointment of Alan Kerber as a viewer on the team to redetermine benefits on County Ditch 5.
I'll second it.
Motion by Commissioner Szymanski, second by Commissioner Kruger. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, IT, Matt.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Matt.
I'm here to request to consider to purchase a one-year subscription to Know Before Security Awareness and Simulated Phishing Training and Fish ER for a cost of $6,649.83 with funds from the information technology budget. In 2019, nearly two-thirds of all publicly known ransomware attacks in the United States have targeted state or local governments. Based on reports from cybersecurity specialists in 2019, ransomware from phishing emails has increased 109% over 2017, and ransomware attacks have increased over 97% in the same period. 34% of organizations hit with malware took a week or more to regain access to their data. The Know Before product has two components: the security awareness and simulated phishing training subscription and the Fish ER subscription. The Fish ER adds an integration with our email client, providing a one-click option to report suspected phishing emails for analysis and reporting. The user then receives a report on if the message indicating if it was a phishing email, considered spam, junk, or is a safe email. The cost for the Know Before product is $6,649.83 for 1 year. Of that, $4,377.78 is for the security awareness training and simulated phishing. $2,272.05 is for the Fish ER. There's a 3-year option for $15,959.59. Of that, $10,506.67 is for the phishing training, and $5,452.92 is for Fish ER. This is special pricing for MNCCC member counties. It originally expired on January 31st. However, Know Before has granted an extension on the pricing until today, as we were unable to make the agenda for the January 21 board meeting.
All right, thank you, Matt. This was at a workshop that we went through, and the numbers were quite staggering, the amount of attempts against our servers and others. Do you have any questions for Matt? Sheila, anything you want to add to this? I mean, you had quite a bit of, you worked with Matt a lot on this project.
The only thing I have to add is we discussed this during the workshop and presented the 3-year and the 1-year options. We would prefer to go with the 1-year option at this time to make sure that this is a good solution for the county. During the testing period, it was recognized that many of the employees were vulnerable to open a phishing email, and we recognize that we need to strengthen our training and assure that we're protecting the county's information.
Anything else from the board?
Mr. Chair.
Ron?
Matt, what's an estimate of how much employee time will be consumed to take this training?
So the Noble 4 training consists of simulated phishing emails being sent to employees. Depending on how they respond to that email, like if they were to click a link, there's training that's can be provided either at the time they click the link or at a later time. The training usually is anywhere from a short 3-second message that they read to anywhere up to a 15-minute video or interactive activity or game that they are required to complete.
Okay, so there's no, we're not bringing everybody together in a classroom setting or anything like that. So it's all interactive with their computers.
That is correct.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
if I could
Sharon.
add to that, we like the interactive format. Our last phishing training was a video that the employee could open up and just press play, and they could essentially walk away from their screen, and we didn't know whether or not they had that information they needed. They could get a phone call or a visit from another person and get pulled away from that. With this being interactive, we'll know that the person needs to complete the training so that they can move forward with more knowledge.
Commissioner Wright, did you have something to add?
Yeah, we've talked about the importance of keeping the county data safe before, and I think it's important to note that the county level of government is attacked often, trying to get the data because of all the records within social services, public health, and within the other departments for those that are trying to steal identity. I think it was a couple years ago, Becker County, is that right? Had a huge data drain.
I'm not aware of one
Okay.
that Becker County has, but I know Hennepin and Ramsey both have.
They have been. So being able to maintain all of that data safe from those that just always are up to no good is very important, and it does require a significant investment of county dollars to do that.
All right, anything else for Matt? World we live in.
Yep.
Mr. Chair, I would move we approve the one-year contract with KnowBe4 Products.
Motion by Commissioner Polmeyer, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Wright, any discussion? Hearing none, proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Public Works. Morning,
Good morning.
Jen.
First item for Public Works is to consider participation in a Minnesota Department of Transportation Highway 7 safety assessment, cost to McLeod County at a not-to-exceed amount of $5,000, with money coming out of our construction budget. MnDOT would like to do a safety assessment on State Highway 7 between Highway 22 on the east side of Hutchinson over to Carver County. They'd look at, evaluate existing conditions, traffic volume, speeds, intersections, crash history, safety concerns, get some public involvement with that, and hear the concerns from the public. You know, there's been, along that corridor, there's been a number of different hot spots over the years that need looking at, and this is consistent for their request as we've spent some money toward the Glencoe study. MnDOT's done safety assessments in other communities around the district and asked for a contribution to that as well. So that's what we're hoping to do. The study is planned to be completed in 2020 yet. So once they get underway, if we move forward with the $5,000 contribution.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
John, has MnDOT already done this study to the west of Highway 22, to the western border of McLeod County, or are you aware of that?
Not to my knowledge, not a safety assessment, no.
Okay.
All right.
Move to approve. Sounds like a good investment to me.
Motion by Commissioner Wright, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Szymanski, any discussion? Hearing none, proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
The next item B relates to our Northeast Ring Road. That's the connection between State Highway 7, east side of Hutchinson, tying into Trunk Highway 15 on the north side of Hutchinson. We've talked about this ring road over the years. Back in 2012, we've done some preliminary alignments in-house with that corridor, but that corridor has been on our radar for several years. This next step for that corridor is we'd like to consider hiring SRF Consulting out of Minneapolis to do Phase 2, we're calling it, which is an alternative study. The cost for that study is based on hourly rates not to exceed $59,005. So Phase 1 of that was completed last fall. That's where we looked at the feasibility of whether that corridor would be used by the traffic, and they did some modeling and so forth, and it came out that it is warranted to move forward with, they feel traffic will use it, so it would make sense to go forward. We've kind of taken this in baby steps rather than just jumping in with a full-blown design. That's why we did the phases we're doing now. So the next step will be to look at some of the past alternatives we've done, to look at the connections with the trunk highways on both ends of it, and to get a lot of public engagement and involvement, and then move forward hopefully to a future phase, which would be more detailed design and so forth after this one. City of Hutchinson's been very interested in this corridor. Last council meeting, the city did vote to contribute $15,000 toward this. A lot of that, I think, going towards some public involvement and public engagement to get the public's feeling for it. So again, we'd like to consider hiring SRF for not to exceed $59,005.
I appreciate the city of Hutch doing that, and this is that hard part of this project, right? Where do we go? We need this information to make the decision. Would that be?
Yeah, brand new alignments. There's not existing roads today there. Some might be used, but for the most part.
And the hard part is finding is there value in this, right? And where is that going to be? And who's benefiting from it? And that's the hard part. So, but I'm glad the city of Hutch decided to partner up with that and come along for the ride. Pardon the pun. Is there any questions for John?
Sure.
Yes, Ron.
Mr. Chair, you just referenced, John, that the city of Hutch has committed some dollars. Would that be in addition to the $59,000 you're requesting, or would that be a component of the $59,000?
It'd be a component of the 59. So ours would be 45
44,000.
or whatever, 44, yeah.
All right. And John, did we have these kind of studies when the current segment of Highway 22 was built out there, and it might be before all of our time, but were similar things done at that time?
I don't recollect. The current 22.
Excuse me. It wasn't before all of our time, and yes, we did.
Okay. Thank you, Mike.
Right, John?
All right.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I think we just want to make sure we're not confusing, a long-range study with leaving here with someone saying we're gonna build it, because we don't know exactly where that corridor is. There's miles of difference between what we're doing here and actually constructing anything. This is something to put on that long-range plan and to someday protect a corridor, so we can coordinate with our planning and zoning division to kind of protect an area from things like building houses or housing development, so that the lowest cost, most logical option doesn't get blocked by some other use. And whether it's 5 years or 40 years down the road, there's wisdom in just maintaining a corridor as the landscape kind of changes through time. I know when I first started being involved with the planning and zoning end of things prior to serving as a commissioner, there was a new house that was built along a road project, and that new home actually had to be moved in order to finish the road. Maybe Mr. Young remembers some of that, but that was prior to my being here. So those are very expensive mistakes that can happen if you don't have a plan. And this is just another phase of making that plan so that we can make good choices with the dollars when they get that far.
All right. That's the pleasure of the board.
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Wright. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Commissioner Polmeyer. Any discussion? Hearing none, proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. John, would you please, for the next items, take C and D? So we can, I know we all have to vote on them separately, but in my mind, I want to discuss them together.
Sure.
So would you please do that?
Okay, so would you C first, or?
Do C and then
Sure.
continue right on to D? and then
Yep,
we'll
so
talk about them.
item C relates to our Morningside project in Glencoe, which is SAP 43615013. This item is to consider approval of a construction and maintenance agreement. That's number 2020-1, and the associated exhibits with the Twin Cities and Western Railroad Company. The cost of this agreement is not to exceed, the main railroad agreement is not to exceed $1,290,000. That's the cost to McLeod County, which that cost in turn, per previous agreements, is split 50-50 with the city of Glencoe. And there are some easement agreements and miscellaneous fees for another $3,001 on top of that. The agreement basically spells out the responsibilities between the county and the railroad for the crossing of TCW Western Railroad line. We've had numerous iterations back and forth with railroad staff, railroad attorneys, county staff, county attorney, and we've arrived at, this is the agreement for that. The various exhibits of that, Exhibit A is just a plan of the project showing where we're crossing Morningside. Exhibit B and B1 is the actual easement with the railroad to be able to operate Morningside across the railroad tracks. Exhibit C is agreement, and C1 is a contractor agreement that we will make part of our construction documents with our successful contractor when we go out for bid for that. That's also referenced in this agreement. And then Exhibit D is the cost estimate for the railroad-related work. Again, the cost for that is the agreement is $1,290,000 for the agreement plus the easements.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Mike?
John, correct me if I'm wrong, but they're having to relocate their track siding, is that correct? And that cost is borne by them and we aren't paying for that directly.
So we are, as part of this agreement is to relocate the existing siding east of Morningside, so we end up with just one crossing, one track crossing. Currently, there's dual rails, dual lines across Morningside. Part of this agreement is to relocate that siding east of Morningside so we get a single crossing. Another component of this is to relocate that farther, like Mr. Young indicated. The farther east we relocate that line, the less probability that they will be switching across Morningside. So we do have some cost toward that, but the railroad is recognizing a benefit of a longer siding, so they are contributing as well, yes.
What the bottom line is, you're saying $1.2 million is a lot of money, and it is, but you touch a railroad and it's expensive. And there are more things than what meet the eye here. So one of those things is that siding, and moving that to the east accomplishes an awful lot of safety things, and access for emergency vehicles is one of those.
Okay.
That's correct. And TCW's been, it seems like this has been a long process, but I can assure you other counties and MnDOT dealings with class 1 railroads such as BNSF and so forth, we probably wouldn't be for this far along. So it's been good that way. It's nice to finally get the agreement in front of for you folks for approvals and keep the process moving. If you want to talk about item D.
I would like you to go over it, yeah.
Sure. So, okay. So with along with the whole Morningside project as a whole, not just the railroad portion, we've had SEH out of Hutchinson under contract to do the design of it, preliminary design and so forth. During design of the project, there's been numerous project changes, unforeseen challenges, and various things that have arose with that. And I'll let John Rodeberg out of SEH speak to some of those, but the essence of it, item D, is to consider an additional $74,010 to revise their contract for an additional $74,010 due to those changes and so forth. And I'll let John address those.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
When we set up a task hour budget for a project, we actually detail every task that we're going to do and put hours into that, and we know what it's going to be. So it's not a percentage of a percentage of the construction project. It's an actual list of tasks. So in this case, a lot of the tasks have changed. When we originally did this, it was going to be a state aid project. The railroad required that there be some federal monies involved because they get some additional legal protections by doing that. So it federalized some of the aspects of this. It required us to do additional traffic reviews, noise reviews, environmental reviews, work past some parks differently. In addition, we worked with the Buffalo Creek Watershed District to try to address some of the drainage issues we've had in that area. So it involved us redesigning, adding some design, redoing some ponding. The ponding led to some issues with the flood issues or a floodplain that we had to deal with as well. So when we look at those, we itemized in here in the letter to you the added costs that weren't in our original tasks. Above and beyond that, we had some cost overruns in tasks that were in the project. We are not asking for compensation for that. These are all items that were not in our additional task hour budget. The projects lasted an additional year. You heard about the complications with the railroad. We had some of the same issues with stormwater, with park, with property acquisition. Some of these items included in here have led to some major cost savings. As we are looking at the location on the north side of the project where we're dealing with wetlands, for example, originally we expected that to cost up to $300,000 in wetland mitigation, and we were able to work through that with different agencies and bring that down to about $15,000. We're doing some of the same thing with property acquisition, where we're working with some of the property owners to be able to relocate some of the material that's coming out of that pond and not have to haul it and save some money that way as well. So the additional efforts, like I noted, were not in the original scope. This is additional efforts above and beyond that, and it will lead to cost savings on the project as well.
Okay, the reason I asked to bring these together is I got hit pretty hard over the weekend about it. So forgive me as I ask some questions. I know
Sure.
You've known me since I was a 20-year-old cop and,
Yeah.
Running around Hutchinson. So, so this is split with Glencoe, right? So this, so just to make sure, I think I know, and full disclosure, I talked to John a little bit over the weekend. So the 74 grand is split between, it's a split project, right?
Right.
So John, if this feels personal, I'm sorry, but is this typical what happens when you have an overrun? Or did you come to the board and I missed it? I mean, it just feels,
well, from the beginning,
it got asked and I felt weird about not knowing the answer, that you didn't come to the board and ask to say, or maybe you did, or to the council and say, hey, we're going to run over, just so you know. Or is that kind of how this works?
Well, we did talk with John when these started coming up, and we've talked about that. We maybe should have come to you guys, but we were very open as part of the process, that these costs were coming up as we went. So we don't wait till the end and then see how it goes and then come and ask money.
Yeah,
we were trying to make people aware as it came, so.
You get where I'm coming from.
I do hear where you're coming from, right? Yeah, we want to be transparent and accountable.
Yeah, and we need to be too, right? And it just feels.
Exactly.
It hurts a little bit, right? Right now as we sit here, right? 74 grand in a $1.2 million project maybe doesn't seem much. It's in the budget, but it's a question we need to ask, right?
Well, and it's a $7 million project.
Yeah, right. Oh, yeah. But as we look at the numbers today.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
So,
Mr. Chair?
It's not unusual if there's complexities, and again, it's an extremely complex project with railroad and wetlands and federal funding, and things that do shift.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess, and before, excuse me, Doug, before I turn it over, I guess, if I missed it, shame on me, but it just felt more of a surprise than I'm comfortable with. Doug, go ahead.
I've got a host of questions, to be quite honest. The first one, I attend Buffalo Creek Watershed. Now, you've went to the Buffalo Creek Watershed and asked for more engineering money from them. Now, is this together, or I mean, where?
No, we did not ask for any additional money we asked for them to contribute to the project as a whole to pay for the portion of the benefit that we added to the project. So when we designed the storm sewer system, we've added capacity and added ponding to address the plans that they came up with. They did some design to show how that could be integrated in there. We added some design to that, so we included what they wanted in this plan as well. We did not ask them for any direct payment to SCH. We've asked them to contribute to the benefit of the project.
Well, the way I understand it, and being at the meetings, they had attended quite a while ago to commit to 74,000. Don't quote me exactly, but and now there's an ask of 113,000 or 107,000. I don't have that figure in front of me.
Is that a benefit number, John?
Is that what?
Like a benefit to the project number?
Right. When this originally came up, if you remember, we've talked about this for years, is how do we address that drainage on the northeast side of Hutchinson? And
Glencoe.
Oh, sorry, Glencoe, sorry, the northeast side. And there's been a number of studies done. We did one with a city. Houston did an additional one. And that came up with a number of different solutions at different price points, anywhere from $600,000 to $1 million to try to address having emergency overflow from the north end of town. So the last one by Houston Engineering was about $1 million, and it followed essentially the same route that we were proposing on the Morningside corridor. So part of the question as we got into that is, could we coordinate those two efforts, increase the size of the pipe and the ponding as part of the Morningside project to also address that drainage on the northeast side of town? So we went back, reviewed those numbers with the Buffalo Creek Watershed District, and then asked if they would be willing to contribute a portion of that, since they said there was a potentially up to $1 million benefit, contribute a portion of that to the budget for the project.
Excuse me, I don't mean to interrupt. I'm trying to find a map. Is this we're by the school right
By the,
now,
right, the east side of the school.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay, continue.
Right. So that's where that came from. So as part of that, we had asked the Buffalo Creek Watershed to consider contributing towards the construction of the project and part of the budget. They came back with a figure of $75,000, saying that that's what they would be willing to do.
And, I mean, I've got the memorandums of agreements here. I mean, we're asking for more, and I don't see any that changed. I mean, I got so much stuff here from all these years, and it just keeps being over and over and over. It's like a big cash cow. We just throw more money in engineering over and over and over. And I've quite frankly, the straw has reached the camel, has got way heavy on the camel's back. I mean, I've lost my support for Morningside. I'm just looking through some of the figures. You've been paid $285,000, roughly $285,000 already in the project, $600,000 for homes. And we're carrying that burden. The county taxpayer is carrying that burden. We have partners here that haven't got any money in this yet. This doesn't even include all our in-kind work. I mean, I quite frankly have kind of reached the end of my road here. I just don't know how we've got other roads to fix. And this has gone on. We were supposed to be ready last fall. We postponed this for none of these reasons. We just postponed it because it was getting late in the season. So we were supposed to get favorable bidding for now. And now we're sitting here, we're in February, and we're still not able to go out for bids?
No, plans are done. We're ready to go out for bids.
Well, they should have been out. I'm sorry, they should have been out.
Well, the last item was the agreement you just approved with the railroad that was leading to that.
I've been meeting with railroads. I've had support, and my support is eroded. I could go back, and I've got so much stuff here, I don't even know where to, and I'm so upset that I don't even know how to spit it all out. But we've been going over and over and over this stuff. And I was hoping we were going to close Diamond, fix Union, or close Union, so we didn't have to fix those two and get Morningside open. I'm getting real close to where we just scrap Morningside and go back and fix Diamond and fix Union and get some of our Ford Avenue, Hennepin Avenue, get some of the roads in this town fixed. Because we just keep tearing at this scab. My phone rings, and my support for this project is quite frankly gone. And I stuck my neck out when I got elected. I backed this thing up, and here I am. I mean, the perception, I looked through all the paperwork, it's been the same tune. I got some of John's presentations, I got SEH's presentations. The last one I seen here from a couple years ago was done on May 29th of 18. It showed the conclusion of this project as the fall of 2019.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So what did we do wrong? Have I just been lying to all my people to get this done, or what did we do wrong?
Well, a big component of this was the railroad crossing. We need agreements. We just can't cross the track without agreements and easements in place with the railroad. And like we just mentioned, as far as working on that, that's been a long, drawn-out process.
Well, maybe if some of the other entities had some skin in the game, paying some of these bills that the county taxpayers now taking on, maybe there'd be a sense of urgency to get the railroad to move here. I just want to build that little piece of road in there. I got all these maps, it's just a little yellow line I'm trying to get done.
Half mile, yeah, same with us.
And I don't know who this benefits. I'd like to see, I read through this stuff. I read through these engineers. Who does that benefit? I want to, like I said, I want to build that little piece of road. That's all I want to see for engineering. I'm sick of looking at all the other drainage. And what if Buffalo Creek does, I go to those meetings. I know these people on the board, they have committed what if they don't pay any more than $75,000? Then do we blend that back into the project?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Kruger, the pecking order in this world is water goes first, railroads go second, utilities go third, state highways go fourth, county highways go fifth, city highways go sixth. When you are that low in the pecking order, the railroad holds all the cards. They determine the pace of the project. We are not in charge of our project. They are. And I've been involved in this. I've been tearing my hair out. I still have most of it. But I'm dealing with things that I'm sitting there looking, this is so complicated, I don't understand half of what I'm looking at.
Well, our hairs are both turning the same color. I mean, so
Well-
obviously, I don't know if this does it, but the point is, we've been in negotiations. I've personally been there, whether it's closing Diamond and working on Union, that's in the railroad's court. And if they don't want to cooperate, then the hell with Morningside and let's fix our roads and I'm ready to park it. I mean, that's $2 million of, we look so stupid, $2.3 million of bonding money to send back, but that'll save the taxpayers some money sending that back. I've had it, quite frankly.
Well, for today, sorry, so we got a $7 million project. Sorry, I transposed the numbers before. We got $1.2 million of almost, right, basically $1.2 million of railroad money that we're talking about today.
Yeah, I mean, the 74,000 for SEH is toward the whole project. So when you look at a $7 million project, yeah, that's a lot of numbers. When you look at typical engineering percentages on other projects, past projects, municipal projects, it's still within that percentage, it's not over and above, I guess.
And I appreciate that. I needed to ask those questions, though, right? And it's important, you know, for people, because people ask us, and that's part of it too. And I've never been leaned on like I have been on this project either. I don't know what's going on with a constituent base. I don't know if it's a vocal minority or what, but this weekend was a weekend that I've never had as a commissioner. Granted, 6 years isn't a long time as a commissioner in the scheme of things, but I mean, there's something going on in the citizens of Glencoe, you know, so I don't know what's going on.
Commissioner,
Yeah.
if this were dealing with a national railroad like the Burlington Northern, you wouldn't see us this far in 2 or 3 more years.
Sure, and thank you for that. I'm just trying to think what to do today, I guess, and maybe I'm talking out loud to do that. Does it make some sense to table this and get some questions answered, at least for the 5 of us? Everything's ready to go upon the approval for the railroad piece of it, it can go for bids?
Once the agreement is approved by you folks, the railroad has to sign it on there, and I'm still waiting for an answer when they will sign it. They've all agreed upon it, they just need to put the ink on the paper. From there, we need to get a crossing agreement with MnDOT, which is just a rubber stamp, but it's about the last hoop for the whole thing, and then we can go out for bids. We're looking right now, where if everything holds the way it is, we're looking at an early March letting, looking at our advertising timeframes and everything, and we're not, ideally we wanted to be out earlier, ideally we wanted to be a lot earlier. Ideally, this thing would have been built in 2001 with state money, and there wouldn't be a nickel of county money in it, you know? Shame on us back in the day when we put this upon ourselves and put that designation on that road of state aid to move forward with this, because we have investments in that first piece. If this Morningside falls off and you guys want to walk away from it, it's certainly a choice, but realize that we have a state aid designation north of 212 that goes nowhere. And that designation is built upon completing that corridor to attach State Aid 15 on both sides.
You're absolutely right, John, and you think this doesn't bother me? This is 212. I've been working on 212 for 4 years. This is a sliver for our part of wanting 212 by bringing the corridor. I'd like to see the 15 corridor open, but I can't take much more of this. I mean, to Commissioner Nagel's point, I wouldn't mind table this for 2 weeks just to see what's going to happen. Because I just can't. I'm so pissed off right now that I can't make a decent decision anyway.
All right. Just one comment. Again, we're requesting payment for items that we were requested to complete that were beyond the scope. We're not leading the project. We're not delaying the project. We're just asking to be treated as a contract called out. And as we've gone through this, and I understand there's a lot of anger about this. I don't necessarily want to be the focus of that, but I certainly want to help and help work through the process.
Excuse me, it's not anger, it's frustration. And I think that some of our, and I guess I'll just direct it to the city. I want some money paid towards this. If we're in this 50-50, why are we carrying all this money? Why are we carrying this? Well, maybe that'll encourage some other people to poke some of these people in the butt and get them going. Our taxpayers carrying all this money now, and this could fail.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, John, what is the consequence of a 2-week delay in this project, or in this action?
I think it would be, the railroad has the understanding now that we're all on the same sheet of music, and if that gets delayed 2 weeks for the railroad, are they gonna cause some doubt a little bit too? Timing wise, it's 2 more weeks, I guess, if you will, and I mean, bidding in March, yeah, ideally you'd want to be earlier, but you look at bid tabs coming in at different levels of other projects. I mean, March is not, it's not like we're at the end of the bidding window, it's bidding season.
John, I've been to the meetings with the railroad, and that would help me with this whole agenda today. It would help me a lot if I would see the railroad actually committing that. If we do this, give me a commitment. I've been at the table with you, and we've talked about Diamond and Union and another crossing down Arrow. We got 2 of the 3, and that's an advantage to them, not only to us in safety things. Give me a commitment, and then I wouldn't have this. I wouldn't have this frustration.
I can't commit on behalf of TCW.
No, I know you can't, but they better.
I think they have, though, knowing that when this whole agreement and exhibits came back, they're supportive of it, I guess. I don't know how else to explain it.
But I don't see much changed in that agreement from earlier. I mean, why didn't they approve it then?
All right, Doug, a couple things. They've kind of blended together. That was on me, and I wanted to take them together. So I appreciate what you said, all right? I think we need to make a decision on what we're going to do with one or both of those items today, respecting the pecking order as you explained it, but part of that frustration because of that they delayed it, right? And now we have some decisions to make on that. So I guess I'll open it up to the other board members for any comments, and then we need to decide how we want to move forward today.
And Mr. Chair,
Yes.
In hearing Commissioner Kruger's concerns and frustration, I think that I don't know of any other road project in my years on the board that has been more controversial than this one, and we all know that. And there's been opportunity, but we can't help what we did this morning, let alone, so we can't change any of those. But it's generally not good to make a decision when there's a lot of frustration in the air. So I am in favor of tabling this. But in doing so, we have to have some good reasons what we expect when we bring it back up. And the impression that has been given to what matters most, which is our constituents, probably hasn't been real good, as this has been a timeline that's been out there and then it's been retracted from and it changes, and maybe we haven't been real clear as to reasons why. But I think if we bring this back up in the near future, if it was possible to have a timeline so that we can publish that at the same time and get the residents on board with what the expectations are. I mean, we've moved homes, we've moved people out of their homes, and then we let it go another year. It's little things like that. If they don't have a lot of really good explanation, it just makes us all look bad, and then pretty soon some bad information gets out there and it gets worse. So I am in favor of tabling to bring this back up, but with the expectation of, can we see a firm timeline so that we can get that out there to the public, work with our newspaper, and whatever we can do to work with those constituents to get that out there, hopefully ease some concerns. If we have to have a workshop in the middle with other groups so that we can, you know, express these frustrations there and get everybody on the same page. It seems like we're maybe trying to gather a few too many loose ends right now, but I'm going to make a motion to table. Oh, sorry, I'll hold that back.
Ron, you have something?
Yes, Mr. Chair. I burned the midnight oil last night trying to read that contract with the railroad, and I appreciate Mr. Young. I'm sure you read every word of it. It is intense, and you know, as he says, the railroad, you know, has almost sovereignty in this corridor, and so we've got to respect that. But I have a couple questions. Earlier today, we heard from MnDOT on the Highway 22 corridors, and County Road 15, Morningside, was identified as one of the potential corridors. In Mr. Rodeberg's request for additional funding, there was a comment that sound barriers were going to be implemented, and then it was determined that we didn't need it. My question is, if MnDOT makes Morningside the Highway 22 corridor, are they going to require the sound barriers because of increased traffic? And if they are taking it over, will they reimburse us for the cost of building that road?
The sound barrier review is based on the amount of traffic, and that was based on the assumption that it was a county road, not a state highway. So we still aren't, and we've talked internally, assuming that this would ever be a state highway. If it was and the traffic numbers changed, you might have to redo the noise study. And sound walls could be required. As of now, they aren't. So I don't know what to tell you. I guess our assumption is that it would not be a state highway.
Any speculation on whether MnDOT would reimburse us for the cost of building this segment?
If it became a state highway, they reimburse those costs, correct?
Oh.
Well, the cost for the noise barriers.
I'm not sure about the noise barrier. There's a separate noise barrier program.
I don't think they would go back and reimburse us for this.
No, not for the cost of the road.
Well, yeah, I don't know.
All right. Ron, anything else?
I don't think they would.
No, thank you.
All right, Paul, you got?
State
Still
that
wanna go
motion. State that motion to table until our next board meeting.
All right.
Thank you, I'll second it.
All right. Motion by Commissioner Wright, second by Commissioner Kruger to, I want to make sure.
A question for Commissioner Wright. Is this items C and D, or
Everything
just?
in item C, I believe.
Yep.
Just item
Yep,
C?
everything in item C.
Table item C. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Roll call. Motion by, Rich?
Aye.
Paul?
Yes.
I'm yes. Ron?
No.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-1. All right, item D, what's the pleasure of the board? We're on the hook for 37, if Pipestone Mass still works, $37 and $5.
Mr. Chair,
Connected.
as long as I'm the one that made the big hubbub about this, and I really hate to, I hate to accept this figure, but I don't know what we do without it. We don't have any tools to fight with if we don't have this engineering study. So, again, this is split 50-50 with, and the railroad has nothing in, or they have no skin in this engineering part of it, even though we have to do the engineering to get the tracks moved down or not.
Their railroad engineering is part of item C, the exhibit and the construction and maintenance agreement that was all tabled. We had pieces of that a little bit, but for the most part, the railroad engineering is within the railroad agreement.
Well, I'm going to stop short of making a motion. I'll listen to some of the others on my
Does the
board.
board have any comments?
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Ron.
Reluctantly, I would move to table item D as well, and ask that the city of Glencoe correspond with us and let us know. One of the concerns being Commissioner Kruger's concern that the county has invested all of the dollars in this project so far, and our partners have not reimbursed us for any of it.
But they are, I mean, the city of Glencoe is involved in everything we spend on this project at a 50% rate.
But they're committed,
Anything
but-
above and beyond the grant money.
Okay, all right.
This 74,000 would be split with Glencoe, the engineering fees, construction costs,
My
the railroad
question,
agreement.
my question, John, is...
Before there's discussion, there needs to be a second, and before that, it needs to be clarified, what's the length of the table? 2 weeks?
Oh, 2 weeks.
Well, the motion's a table, so there's no discussion on the motion.
Well,
so.
until there's second, there is, but just for clarification.
I'll be the second.
And then there's no discussion.
All right, so motion by Commissioner Szymanski, second by Commissioner Wright. To table item D. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. So it's-
Okay, item E.
Yes, please.
All right, item E is to consider approval of our 2020 through 2024 Highway and Bridge Construction Plan. As you know, annually, we do the 5-year plan. We update it as we go through. Things obviously change as you go through it from 2020 to 2024 and so forth. Funding levels change a little bit. Other projects come up and so forth. So as you get farther along in the plan, in the out years, those are likely to change off and on, as you've seen in the past. So if you want me to walk through each year, what's the wishes of the board?
Mr. Chair?
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, Paul. You want to go first?
Paul, go ahead.
I just think for the benefit of anybody watching, just maybe hit those high points
Okay.
within each year.
All right, I'll
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Ron.
John, if I may interrupt. The 5-year plan that you've offered to us today, is this virtually the same as what we looked at the workshop a couple
Correct,
weeks
same
ago?
same as what was at the workshop a few weeks back.
So there've been no modifications for topics that were brought up at the workshop?
There will be, money-wise, there will be some modifications to some, we received some additional safety money for it. I'll talk about that at the one item, but for the most part, the projects remain the same.
Okay.
And with some comments.
Just to let you know, I'm going to have a problem with that, so,
Sure.
okay.
Go ahead, John.
Okay, so 2020, the major projects, CASA 19, northwest part of the county, 5.4 miles in length. We're looking at a rehabilitation job from County Road 12 to the North County line. That is most likely going to be tied in with a Meeker County project that will extend that farther up. CASA 15, Morningside, which you've heard about. CASA 11, we got a bridge over the South Fork of the Crow River. That's just west of our County Road 66. We received bond funds to help with the cost of that project. Why don't I back up and talk about the cost too for the public. The CASA 19 project is a project cost of $1.8 million, and we're looking at funding that with levy funds. The Morningside project was a host of money between the different entities. CASA 11, we're looking at using our state aid funds for a portion of that. And then, as I mentioned, we received a bridge bond grant. That's a state grant from the state for that. County Road 54, we're looking at bituminous surfacing on that. That would be from County Road 87, that's the south side of Lake Marion, all the way up to County State Aid 7, that's 4 miles in length. We're looking at using the remainder of our wheelage funds and county levy funds for that. Total cost of that is approximately $800,000. Then we have some safety projects on County State Aid Highways 3 and 15. We're looking at installing ground-in striping and rumble stripes. Again, that's a safety enhancement. That project is funded 90% with federal funds, federal safety funds, and the remainder with county levy funds. Total project cost of that's around $250,000. And then CASA 7, shoulder paving and rumble stripes. CASA 7, that termini goes from 212 all the way up to South Grade Road in Hutchinson. Majority of that will be a 2-foot wide shoulder paving, and through the curves it'll be 6-foot wide shoulder paving, and then adding of rumble stripes with that. In the 5-year plan, it shows federal funds of around $299,000 and a levy funds of $280,000. We did request additional safety funds for that a month back or so, and we just heard actually yesterday or heard late last week that it was going to get the additional funds. So that project is going to receive an additional approximately $200,000 of federal safety funds. So the local share will be back to that 10%. So that 280 will drop a little bit. We have some rehabilitation projects budgeted that are not programmed yet. And then every year you will see 2020 through 2024, you'll see pavement marking and seal coat projects. Typically we do 20 to 25 miles of seal coat every year. We also do striping every year, centerline striping and or edgeline striping. Some of that's more or less throughout the years depending on some of the safety funds we get in the above categories. This year, along with a seal coat project, we are going to have an alternate bid for some of the other county parking lots. We've done that over the years, so we'll have an alternate bid for that for the courthouse lot, different ones like that. So that completes 2020 approximate project cost for everything around $11,900,000 for 2020. Moving on to 2021, County Stated 115, this is south side of Hutchinson from County Road 7, which is School Road, east over to Trunk Highway 22. We're looking at a concrete overlay project. That project will be using some of our sales tax funds along with some levy funds. In addition to that concrete overlay, we are going to do a little bit of work on the approaches on the bridge over the South Fork of the Crow. We got to add approach panels for that, so that'll be included in that. That project cost us $2.3 million. We've programmed some bridges in there. County Road 57, that bridge is now on MnDOT's list as far as being deficient, is eligible for replacement. So contingent upon receiving the bridge bond funds, we'd like to look at doing that project in 21. Although, like I stated earlier, those are examples of projects that could shift depending on when we could get funding for it. CASA 13, same thing, a bridge, similar bridge condition. Again, if we get bond funds, we would look at doing those projects, probably tying them together to get a better economy of scale. County Stated 15, this is in Glencoe, just on the north end of where Morningside project would stop, 16th Street up to County Road 3. We're looking at a concrete overlay on that job. Again, that's using state aid funds, and the majority of that with our sales tax funding for $700,000. We're programming some concrete pavement repair, some of our previous concrete projects, County Road 2, County Road 115, just looking at some full depth repairs, some panel replacements, things of that nature. We programmed some funds for that. I did program in 21, there's a bridge in Acoma Township that now meets the threshold for replacement, and should the township move forward with wanting to do that, we would program that in at some point to see where that would fit in the schedule. But that's contingent on, township bridge funding and, of course, Acoma Township wanting to move forward with that. Safety project in 21 for countywide 6-inch pavement marking, that's edge line marking. We have federal funds for that. Total project's around $62,000. Programmed some bridge deck maintenance over the years. We've been programming some of this, and it kind of goes on and off, but basically looking at some of our bridge decks, sealing cracks, doing some minor pavement repairs on the bridge decks themselves. And then on the bottom, you'll see again the rehabilitation projects that are programmed and not identified, as well as pavement marking and seal coating similar. 2022, we've received federal funding from MnDOT to do a concrete overlay on County Stated 1. That's from Sibley County all the way up to County Road 3. Federal funds of $2.6 million, state aid funds of $600,000 for that project. Tying on to that project, then we'd like to go another 6 miles from County Stated 3 up to County Stated Highway 22, southwest of Lester Prairie. That's a 6-mile project with the $3.9 million cost using our state aid funding. Similar concrete overlay, County Road 2 from Sibley County up to 212 at south of Glencoe. Looking, it's 3.3 miles, 1.7 million is our estimate. We're using sales tax for that. Similar, County Road 3 from Trunk Highway 15 over to County Road 75, so kind of in that Lake Marion area from Trunk Highway 15 east to the concrete project that we did a few years back. It would be a similar project to that. And that would be using our local levy money for that. I'm sorry, using sales tax funds. County Road 13, southeast of Brownton, rehabilitation project. We're programmed from US 212 up to Sibley, or down to Sibley, I should say. That's a 7.4 million or 7.4 mile project. At this time, we haven't identified how in-depth of a fix we're looking at. We're going to get hopefully some data this year from when we do some pavement testing, see what we need to do as far as a type of fix for that. 2022, we did program some funds in. The city of Glencoe has requested, it'll be on a future agenda item for some trail rehabilitation. There's some existing walking, hiking, biking trails along County Road 33 in Glencoe and along County Road 15, Morningside south of the bridge that are in, those are, the 33 trail especially is tired and vintage and needs work. So that $150,000 we program represents approximately half of that cost. So again, that'll be on a future agenda item. We did receive safety funds in 2022 for some more 6-inch wide pavement marking. It's about a $50,000 project. Again, most of those safety funding projects are 90% federal, 10% local match. Similar seal coating and pavement marking on the bottom. 2023, again, these are getting in the out years a little bit, but we're looking at some bridge deck overlays. County Road 71, that's the bridge near the landfill. We're looking at a deck overlay on that, basically taking off some of the concrete wearing surface, putting on a new deck, bridge deck for that to increase the service life of that. Similarly, on County Road 9, north of 212, there's a similar bridge. County Road 74, another bridge that has hit the threshold for replacement. This is north of Plato, just east of County Road 9. It's an old timber slab structure. And should we get some bond funds for that, it's a bigger bridge, so we would look at replacing that if we get bridge bond funds. Similar safety funds in 2023, ground and wet reflective edge lines. That's what we've applied and we're successful. That's for County Road 1, County Road 2, County Road 115. So those are some of the projects that concrete overlays we're looking at in the next couple of years. 2023, we'd look at we receive safety funds to put in ground in reflective striping. So the edge line of the road, it's basically, they mill in, a very thin depth, and then that's where the pavement marking goes. That helps with plow damage from snow plowing, gives it longer life and so forth. Then we can use a higher quality wet reflective striping, they call it, for that.
John, can I interrupt you?
Sure.
You've been doing that for a while now, right?
Yeah, ever since we've had the, 10 years back, started the County Road safety plans, ground in wet reflective, some wider edge lines, 6-inch edge lines versus the traditional 4-inch.
And I should have just asked, you're happy with it? Right?
Yeah, it's been working good. It's a good, I think it's a low-cost safety measure, and it works well.
Okay, thank you. Sorry.
Again, similarly on the bottom, the seal coat and pavement marking. 2024, last project, we were hoping to receive federal funding for a concrete overlay in County Road 18. That did not get approved this year. So one thing we could do is look at that, plan for that project in 2025. Or I think we'll just probably move that funding over and fund it with sales tax or state aid funds, but still program 18 for that 2025. There's certainly other roads in future years that we can apply for federal funding for. So that's what we'd look at there. One more 2024. Last thing on there as far as there's pavement marking, ground in wet reflective edge lines again. County Road 3, 15, 115. Some of those might be a typo when we're covered in 2023, but again, it'd be it'd be doing those safety funds. Those haven't been approved. I have to review that, but one thing I will mention that we talked about in the workshop that you don't see in the plan is in the Winstead area, the County State Aid Highway 5 extension. We've done some studies on that, as you know. We're doing some preliminary engineering now from County Road 1 over to County Road 9, as well as on Baker Avenue in Winstead, which is our County State Aid Highway 9. That has been on the radar for work. That doesn't show up in this plan, but I think, and I've reached out to the city after our workshop, and they're working up some cost estimates with their engineers, looking at some, what they see as some cost sharing, and I see those projects filling in the out years, 2022, maybe 2024, 23, so forth. So, other than that, I think that, I guess, is there any questions on those?
Ready?
Yeah, any questions?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Ron?
John, thank you for bringing up the County Road 5 extension at Winstead. I met with the city administrator last week, and he's quite excited. They've got a industry that wants to put a 100,000 square foot building out there, and I get the feeling that they would like to fast track that project a whole lot faster than 2 or 3 or 4 years out. They're going to need it. The city is ready to grow, and they need this connection there real soon. And I was a little disappointed that it wasn't part of the 5-year plan. But, well, I've still got the microphone. You don't address County Road 16 and County Road 5.
16.5, yep. Those are, and I think those are, I mean, those are like the last workshop we had. Those are questions, I mean, there's certainly 16's a narrow shoulder, lower traffic, same with 5. We want to look at, do we want to look at the bigger projects? Do we want to look at the $1.2 million to $1.3 million a mile for those jobs, or do we go back and look at $300,000-$400,000 a mile with just the rehabilitation on those? And those are.
I wish we had taken the time to do the road tour last fall, because those roads are in considerably terrible shape right now. I anticipate you could have your highway maintenance people out there all summer long patching potholes and cracks in the road. It's that bad already. Last summer, I think you had Braun Intertech do some core sampling on County Road 5. Did we see that report come back to us, or?
We did some FWD testing and coring on that. Yeah, that's been back now, and,
yeah, and
confirmed some of the worst spots. Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things that concerns me, John, is that these road beds are 60 to 80 years old. They've never been rehabilitated as long as I've been alive. And yet we're doing concrete overlays on segments of roads that are only 10, 20, 30 years old. And so I'm just concerned, you know, where do our priorities lie when we're spending the millions of dollars on one side of the county and neglecting the other side of the county?
Well, and as far as where the roads are located, I guess, the traffic dictates the condition of them. The old mentality was always worse first to fix the roads. When you look at a pavement life cycle, you put a little more money in. When the curve goes from good to poor, you put a little more money in here. It's less money to put in to keep it good. So that's what we've been focusing on too. We've also been focusing on some of our wider shouldered roads that are in need of rehab. County Road 18, County Road 3. They don't look as tough as 3 and 5 and so forth, but I think putting money into those now is going to get a longer life and benefit than.
But what do we do in the first district of McLeod County? Those roads are getting nothing put on them. The seal coat, if you look out there right now, the snow plows have been peeling away the seal coating that's been put on the last 3 or 4 times, and it's turning into potholes. I've got grain haulers that say they get off of those roads as quick as they can because it's too hard on their equipment. My neighbor said they had taken a weekend trip to Iowa. The girls were sleeping in the back seat, and they turned off on County Road 16, and they woke up and says, "Where the heck are we? How come the road is so rough?" They've traveled hundreds of miles, and the roughest road they traveled was the home stretch. And so it's a big concern to me, and I think it should be to our highway department as well.
Well, unfortunately, we don't have the money to spread to do we're trying to spread the money the best we can. We certainly don't pick a district and say it's this district's turn for roads. We look at the road condition and look at that. We know 5 is bad. We know it's the stretch of 5. Just because, I want to clarify, just because you don't see it in 20 through 24, doesn't mean it won't be put in here. I see a project coming on 5 in this area. 16 as well, but the question would be, do we want to spend $1.3 million mile to reconstruct, or do we want to look at, the rehabs?
Okay, John, $1.3 million, what would that entail? What would the final design look like on a road?
It'd be a 40-foot wide road, similar to what we just built this summer on County Road 15 and 3. That's
okay.
A road like that. Yep.
I guess my question is, what is there a phase in between? Can we, mill and overlay or do a, full depth reclamation and then
similar
reestablish
to,
the bed?
County Road 25 from Airport Road South, the rehabilitation project where we're doing the reclamations are basically garden till up the bituminous and put a new layer on top. That's certainly an option, but then unfortunately you don't have the shoulder width on those, and that's.
I think the buildup of the bituminous there is probably over a foot already, and if
So
you
you
mill
take
that
some-
down, you'll probably end up with a wider roadbed. You won't have a 10-foot shoulder.
Which is what
but
you do, yep.
You'd have an improvement.
That's certainly an option. Again, that's kind of what I brought up at the workshop. That's the question, do we want to put money into the full fixes on those roads, or do we want to do some of those rehabs and hold them and?
I think we should take it back to a workshop and talk it over some more.
Yeah.
But,
You can certainly do that, but again, there's things that I think you'll see shift in and out of the plan that aren't set in stone. So, I mean, 5 is certainly within a 5-year window.
I encourage you to take a drive out there in the next month. County Road 16, County Road 5, it's a little bit more like a roller coaster ride than a county road, so.
All right, John. Any more questions for John? Well, I think, this is something that we want to talk about some more. The 2020 is pretty rock solid, right?
I would agree.
And thank you for that. I'm sorry, I lost my place here, so I'm trying to figure out where we're at. Does anybody have any questions specific to this year? What's going on?
Mr. Chair, I
Yes.
think this year's plan is a good plan.
Okay. Does it hurt? I mean, we can approve the plan, it moves, right? It's a moving target.
It is, yeah, all the
does-
projects come to you guys for approval. They're not, we don't just go out for bids and they're done deal. They come back for you for bid approval and so forth.
So can you talk at that workshop, we had quite a segment of the public there too, and then with the gravel roads, have we got anywhere on that work yet?
Not yet, no.
Okay.
There's discussion, a lot of discussion on improving gravel roads, frost boils primarily and so forth, so we're working with, the plan will be to work with, this spring we we'll look at a gravel road as a test section and do some different things on there, get some input from some of the folks that were at that workshop, and the commissioners that were there.
All right. So, I'll just throw this out there. If it goes anywhere, great. If not, so be it. Approve the 5-year plan with, we got to get a road tour in and some workshops to discuss it further. How's that sound?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I think I'd weigh in. I think we need to do a little more work.
Rich, why don't you plug your mic in here?
I'm sorry. I think we need to do a little more work with some of the rehabs on some of the gravel roads and realizing that's not going to cost us the $1 million a mile, but it's going to cost something. And I would be in favor, as Commissioner Nagel said, to approve the 5-year plan as is, but know that we have gravel roads and we probably need a road tour, that we need to take a look at some of the other roads also.
Yeah, I mean, the workshop was, there was a fair number of the public there, and it was surprising to me to hear a lot of the focus on gravel, so it was good to hear, I think, for you guys as well, so.
I'll second it so we can actually have this discussion.
Motion by Commissioner Polmeyer, second by Commissioner Kruger. Any discussion?
I guess, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
So if this changes, I mean, and I agree with the other commissioners that 2020 looks fine, but obviously there's some things in there that could disappear. So we still can move that around. Is that correct? I mean, I don't see much changing in 2020, but if the other 4 years, to Commissioner Szymanski's points and stuff, we still can shuffle that around. Is that right?
Absolutely. Like I mentioned with Winstead projects, I see those getting added in, and it's just a matter of working with the partners to see how the funding will fit.
And the only other question I have before we call the question is County Road 19, 19 north of Hutch.
Correct.
That's, and for the record, that one's been pushed 3-4 years now.
Couple times.
So that's what happens, and it needs to be done, and I'm glad it's this year. But anything with Meeker, did that get tied in?
It will be tied in, yeah. We spoke with their engineer yesterday, today a little bit. It'll be a piece of it. We're probably looking at a mid-March bid date is what we're looking at.
Okay. All right, fair
Mr.
enough.
Chair,
Any further discussion? Go ahead, Doug.
I just want an FYI or just reminder that these roads aren't, to Commissioner Szymanski's points, they're not just for roads. I mean, there's an economic development point in here. I mean, I've been in, Winstead's not my district, but that's a hot town, you could say. They're growing. I mean, that has to be taken into consideration, because obviously we can't, you know, we need to expand our tax bases. And some of these roads, whether it's Hutchison, Glencoe, Winstead, any of our towns, that has to be a considering factor to increase our tax bases.
Understand, totally, yep.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, item F, we'd like to have you authorize us to proceed with letting dates for the project. Some of these have been previously authorized, so you won't see everything in 2020, but CP 20-000-01, that's countywide pavement marking. CP 20-000-02, that's our countywide seal coating. Again, that project will have an alternate in there for the courthouse parking lots, county parking lots in there too for consideration. Keep that in mind. CP 20-05402, that's County Road 54 paving. 43-6-1904 is the 19 project. 6-11-13 is the bridge replacement. SP 43-070-016, that's ground in pavement marking on portions of CSA 3 and 15. SP 43-070-19 is shoulder paving and rumble stripes. Again, SP is a state project. When we have federal funds, it gets an SP. SAP is a state aid project. CP county project. And those projects, as mentioned earlier, those are in our 2020 plan.
All right, any questions?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Just out of curiosity, John. The ground in pavement markings on County Road 3 and County Road 15, remind me, why don't they do that as they construct the road rather than like the following year grinding?
Because we knew we could probably apply and get safety funds to install those. We didn't have that. If we would have tried for that money with the project, that whole project, 3 and 15, would have been federalized. Similar to what we ran in Glencoe. You'd be looking at a whole host of other environmental concerns when federal money touches it.
Okay.
That's why we're doing it later.
All right. Thanks for clarifying that.
That's a good question. All right. Any other questions?
Move to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Szymanski. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Wright. Any discussion? Hearing none, proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Item G relates to the construction of the bridge on County Road 11. We'd like to hire Erickson Engineering out of Eden Prairie to do the construction observations on that. Cost for that is based on hourly rates not to exceed $78,754. Right now, we don't have engineering technicians that are certified in bridge construction. Or I should say, when we get bridge bond funds from the state aid money and so forth, we have to have certified technicians working on our projects. Our technicians are young right now. It's certainly the goal. They will be getting bridge certifications at some point in the career, but we lost one of them prior years, so that's why we don't have one right now. Had we have staff in-house. We wouldn't have needed to hire this consultant.
Okay. Mr. Chair.
Yes, Ron.
John, remind me, a few years ago, we replaced the bridge on County Road 15 over the Crow River. Would we have an in-house engineering technician on that one, or did we contract that one out?
We had one in-house on that. We had, I'm trying to recall back if we did have some consulting services on that as well. I don't believe we did. We had an in-house tech at the time, though.
Okay, all right.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Well, again, it could be just perception, but we better take a hard look at having one in-house. I mean, $78,000 for, almost $79,000 for one bridge is a lot of money. So, I mean, we better,
I absolutely agree.
I know help is hard to get, but I mean, we better put that at a higher priority to fill, I mean.
I don't disagree with you, Commissioner.
I mean, I don't know how many bridges we have, you know, and I'm sure we're like the rest of the country, our bridges are all failing, so we're gonna have more bridges, but 79 grand isn't.
Sheila, go ahead.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, I can assure you that John has made this his main focus in his department. He's been working closely with Human Resources to try and fill this position since Mr. Barta left for MnDOT. And has had issues in recruiting engineering technicians before that. On paper, we're not competitive, pay-wise, with the other counties that have these jobs posted. I would assume that they've had to increase their wages to try and recruit the small pool of engineering technicians available. So this will be on a workshop soon, because John has brought it to us numerous times. We haven't taken much action on it. We did do, I believe we had this as an issue in 2017 or 18, but I don't recall when, John.
Yeah,
But,
you know, I'm glad you brought that up, you're correct and all that.
so this will be in front of you again. He's been sending me the information we need to review over the past week, and we will be.
I'd love to put that 78,000 toward staff, toward overlay or something.
That's my biggest reason for bringing it up. I mean, we do have some public here today, and I get the questions all the time why, you know, a lot of our money is going to wages, and I guess that's the bigger reason why I brought it up. I did happen to know that you're working on it, but I mean, do the math. I mean, look at how much this just cost, and obviously we catch hell when we add staff and what we have to pay out, but I mean, just look at the costs, and we're mandated to do these things. We don't just wish that we had an engineer. We're mandated to engineer this, so.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
One thing to add, that when John put this agenda request in, I did ask if he had to spend these types of funds prior, and this is due to that staff leaving, and these are the types of tight situations that we could face if we aren't able to retain the staff in these positions. $80,000 is obviously a high percentage of wages plus benefits, and could be used in other areas, like Commissioner Kruger said. So we are focusing on trying to find a solution.
Very good.
Thank you.
Ron?
Mr. Chair, just the curiosity gets me sometimes, but with this contractor doing the bridge engineering, they're also testing materials and so forth. Is that cost all inclusive in the $78,000? You know, I think, don't they do materials testing, like core sampling the deck and so forth?
There's testing involved. I believe they are I believe that is included in here. I certainly will have our staff, if they're available, to help shadow a little bit on some of that, help with some of the other stuff on it.
Okay. The reason I'm asking, John, is just there's more than just labor hours involved in this contract. There's some actual testing requirements and so forth included in that process.
All right.
Yeah, a lot of it is just the labor. I don't believe there's testing involved.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
All right, well, we'll obviously address this now, but let's stay on top of that. Sheila, please.
Yes.
I mean, it's a big number. It's one bridge, right?
Right.
Mr. Chair, can I just add one point? If we could at least have a focus during this time of having the engineering technicians that you do have shadowing, like you mentioned, but also recognizing what we need to exactly do to have them become bridge certified and and grow with the county.
And they are, yeah.
Okay.
They're taking a ton of courses this winter, I should say. Other
Great.
courses, bituminous,
'Cause
concrete.
winter's the time to do it,
Thank
right?
you.
with them?
That's when they are, yep.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
All right, but we still got to deal with this one, so, what's the wishes on item G?
Move to approve. I don't think we have a choice, do we?
No, we don't.
I'll second it.
Motion by Commissioner Wright, second by Commissioner Kruger. Any discussion? Hearing none, proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Item,
H.
yeah.
For the record, I think this is the longest board meeting I've had. so-
This is not the longest one I've ever had, but probably.
H is we'd like to have you consider approval to purchase a new cat motor grader at Model 140. Includes a plow and wing. It's from Ziegler Cat. State contract price for that is $338,868. That would replace a 2007 Caterpillar 12H motor grader, which is dealt with in the following items. It's either we can either trade it or we can sell it on min bid. So that's why we put the full price in item H, and then the trade will come up in the future item. So I put on the item H, of course, purchasing that is contingent on trading or selling the used one that it would replace.
Mr. Chair, so do you have a solid 53,000 minimum? I mean, is that something you've got?
52.
52,000
Yes.
is solid, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and that blade or that motor grader is in the equipment budget for 2020.
How many of those we run? I've asked you this
3.
probably. 3?
Okay.
And what are the ages of those? Was this the oldest one, or where?
That's the oldest one, yeah. We have a 2007, this would replace a 2011 and a 2018.
So I won't see one of these for a few years again.
It's whatever the board wishes.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
John, what's the anticipated delivery of this? Would it be coming in a few months? Or?
I thought it was a 2-month window or something like that.
Okay, all right,
Yeah, so we have time to put it on min bid and so forth.
okay.
All right.
Move to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Wright. Is there a second? Was that you, Rich?
Yes.
Second by Commissioner Colmeyer. Any discussion? Hearing none, proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Item I then is to consider selling the 2007 Caterpillar 12H on min bid. We'd like to set a minimum price of $53,000 on min bid. If we don't reach that on min bid, then we would trade it in at a value of $52,000 toward the one you just purchased. Right now, our shop foreman has been looking on auctions a little bit. He thinks maybe it'll generate $70,000, but
I was
hard
going to
to
ask.
say.
Thank you for that information. All right, any
I'll
questions?
move on item I.
Motion by Commissioner Kruger,
Second.
second by Commissioner Wright. Any discussion? Hearing none, proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Last item for us, item K, we'd like to have you authorize us to proceed with bid lettings for the fairgrounds horticulture and commercial building bathroom projects. That is funded out of the capital repairs budget. A little overview on those. The project includes, so the existing bathrooms in the commercial building at the fairgrounds, those would be rehabilitated, new fixtures, new floor, so forth and so on. It includes adding restrooms, men's and women's restrooms on the west end of the horticulture building, six stalls in the women's bathroom, 3 urinals in the men's bathroom, three stalls in the men's bathroom. Estimated cost from the architect for those, he said it's kind of hard to nail down given the project type we're doing. His estimate for the horticulture building is $160,000 to $180,000. His estimate for the commercial building is $60,000 to $80,000. Based on economy of scale, he says it's going to be hard to really dial in those numbers. So until you bid them, which you have, they'll come back to you guys next, and then if we like the numbers, we move ahead, or we don't like the numbers, regroup. But in addition to that, we're looking at a completion date for the horticulture building of June 1 and July 1 for the commercial building. And then another caveat will be they got to keep one in working order so we can still have restrooms and so forth.
Okay. Any questions for John on this? We had a workshop, saw the drawings.
Yeah, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
John, just remind me, the restrooms in the horticulture building, they'll be fully insulated, will they be heated in through the winter?
Yeah, there's fully insulated and heated. We went back and forth on do we make them just tempered in the winter, but I think we ended up on heating the whole thing, so.
Thank you. I think that's the logical thing to
Yeah.
do.
How much do you still get?
Right. Yeah. It's better than fixing frozen plow.
Right.
That's right. Move to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Wright,
I'll second.
second by Commissioner Polmeyer. Any discussion?
Just that when we met with the long-range planning that the Fairgrounds Commission group had done, it was indicated that the bathrooms at the fairgrounds were one of the deficiencies that needed to be addressed in order to be able to offer more events to be able to come and utilize McLeod County Fairgrounds. And so this is one of those steps to utilize that facility even more. It's quite a gem in our county, so I think this is a good path to go down.
I think an important thing to add is, initially we were looking at a whole different, separate facility on the south end of the mall. And, given the cost of remodeling the horticulture building versus building that, we're probably money ahead doing the
Yeah, I
route
was
we
going
went.
to add that. I think it was 170. It was, I should have that number. I should guess, but
Well,
it was
the
quite.
Pippenberg project, that was 100 to remodel in a little bit, so.
And we had infrastructure issues at the fairgrounds, so. All right, any discussion?
Mr. Chair, again, I'll echo the same thing. I think it's a good location, and there's from what all the data I've seen, it's well needed, and it's going to be utilized. It's a good location, better than the one if you would have went new down by the mall anyway, so.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. John, did you want to pull item J? You skipped over it.
Oh, geez, sorry. No, so we have a 1970.
I know you want to get off the podium.
We have a 1976 Cat 950, very old. We'd like to sell that in min bid for $20,000. We don't utilize it any longer. We don't need to utilize it.
Okay.
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Wright. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Polmeyer. Any discussion? Hearing none, proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
What about item Z?
Need more letters.
All right, County Administration, Rich.
Okay, since our last meeting, had a workshop after the last board meeting. Also had Health and Human Service Public Health meeting. We re-elected our officers, and thanks to you gentlemen, you re-elected me as chairman again, and Paul Wright is the vice chairman of that committee now for the coming year. Next day, you had Planning Commission meeting. One of the things will be coming up at our next Planning Commission meeting again on a solar farm that is being proposed. EE&D meeting, and then I was able to attend the corn and the soybean meeting. Had a very interesting speaker, the millennial farmer, and brought some new ideas to me about what farming is today as compared to what it was 40 years ago when I was involved in it. So that brings me up to today.
Paul was going to go last today, so we had a workshop, Health and Human Services meeting, went to a community schools event in Glencoe. They have them often. It's the first one I finally was able to get to. It's very enjoyable. Got to speak to several students about careers, county government, and my law enforcement career. I think I had more fun than they did, but tough. It was great. Some meetings with administration, and this morning a law library meeting. And unless Mike wants to go over that, that's about all I know. So, Ron?
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. Also, since our last board meeting, we had the Health and Human Services Committee meeting. Congratulations to our newly re-elected officers on that committee. I also attended the GSL Schools and Careers Lunch. Thanks to Superintendent Sanju for inviting us. You made it a really fun event for all of us that were there. Then I also attended the corn growers meeting as well, their banquet, enjoyed their speaker, and last week I had no meetings at all, and then yesterday we had Supporting Hands Nurse Family Partnership. That's our 20-county first-time mothers organization, and we have invited Sibley County to join us, and we're working out details with Sibley County to become our 21st county in our Supporting Hands Nurse Family Partnership, and that's where we are.
Doug?
Quickly, I also did the workshop after our last board meeting, Health and Human Services Board meeting. I had, on the 22nd, I had an HRA board meeting, and after that, I did a construction update on county, or joint ditch 8 up at the North Complex. On the 22nd, I also had a Mid-Minnesota development meeting in Wilmer. We did a long-range planning meeting on the 27th in Hutchinson. I also, on the 27th, attended the High Island Watershed meeting where the Houston Engineering's report was given to the board and to members of the public on Baker's Lake on a plan that they engineered on addressing some of the issues on Baker's Lake. I also, on the 28th, attended Buffalo Creek Watershed meeting, and that brings us up till, I did also do the corn and soybean growers. The Millennial Farmer was quite interesting. I usually take my wife along, and that was an hour-long presentation, and she told me she could have sat through another half an hour, and that's unusual, but it was entertaining at the least. But I also did the Glencoe Silver Lake School with the students, and I've done that as many times as I can, and it's quite rewarding. It's the only thing bad is it makes you feel old when you sit down talked about what's going on today with the kids. But there's some pretty smart kids out there, and Mr. Sanju does a good job of putting this on, and they feed us well too. So.
Sheila, anything?
Yes. Just a reminder that the 2020 Student Government Day will be held on April 7th. We do send an invitation out to all of our McLeod County schools. However, don't always know that we're getting to all of the kids. Maybe some are at home school. Maybe some aren't in a relevant classroom where they'd hear about this. So if you know of any teachers that should receive the information in the county, any students, please let them know to contact county administration at McLeod County, and we'd be happy to send them the information for April 7th, Student Government Day. Thank you.
Paul?
To start with, I had a lot of similar meetings with the workshops, Health and Human Services, was at the Community Schools event, Highland Watershed, Long Range Planning. One different one was the redetermination hearing for JD 11, which is a shared ditch system between Sibley and Renville as well. Corn and soybean meeting. I asked to go last because I'm going to go a little bit off topic here today, using this time to maybe address things that we hear out there and are asked questions on, and also be able to share why it means a little bit more to where I sit. Last week, news of yet another farmer in his mid-30s passing away in a grain bin. A week before that, a 9-year-old boy lost his life under a skid steer on a Minnesota farm. Right before Christmas, 2 brothers in their upper 40s, as well as one 11-year-old boy, passed away in a silo. This rash of farm accidents is quite a tragic deal, and I think because we all have farm backgrounds, we can exchange quite a few stories that we have heard over time. But even with this fall, I believe there was 3 individuals that died in grain bins, and one of them a local Glencoe farmer. And these farm accidents happen from tractor rollovers, skid steers, grain bins, silos. Manure gas, had a neighbor that lost his life to that a number of years ago. Power takeoffs, augers, livestock such as bulls have claimed the lives of dozens, if not over 100 Minnesota farmers. Although the bulls are not very common on Minnesota farms anymore, you still hear of one of those once in a while. There was a lady up in, I believe it was Freeport, not that many years ago, was killed by a bull. Their youngest child was only 3 months old. So these things happen, and they're very unfortunate. Former Commissioner Ray Byrle shared a story where he was entangled in a power takeoff a long time ago and was not expected to survive his injuries, but thank goodness he did. So In April 2nd, 2012, was a day that, oh, this one still haunts me, but that was the day that I became engaged in a power takeoff accident, which brought me through several days of sitting in the intensive care unit. Doctors using the word lucky quite a bit, but stories are one thing, but it's the visuals that mean a little bit more. So I brought with me today the clothes that I managed to cut off on myself before I didn't make it and became one of those on the story list. So my accident started, I was spreading fertilizer on that morning, and I did something I shouldn't have. I knew better, but I did it. Reached in, and my clothes became entangled in the power takeoff shaft traveling alongside the manure spreader. I think this was roughly around 11 o'clock in the morning. Everything I had on me was slowly, well, it instantly pulled the air out of me, and I was not able to breathe. I don't know exactly how long I was stuck there, but everything that I had on the top side of me is what I have here today. And with basically about the last breath that I had, I was able to grab my jackknife out of my pocket and start to cut my clothes off. I chose not to fix this at all, sew it back together, or throw it away either. It hangs as a reminder of maybe sometimes what luck means. But these accidents they happen in a flash, and they make the news, and it's too bad. This one was several days in the intensive care unit, an awful long time to heal from, and still to this day I know exactly where those injuries sit. But somehow I was given a second chance because statistically I probably shouldn't be here out of this one. On our farm, every year we host the fourth graders of Hutchinson Schools to come out. It's a joint venture between McLeod County Farm Bureau. Mr. Albright is here. He brings a safety trailer that is sponsored by the State Farm Bureau. The Hutchinson School District helps out. The Hutchinson FFA chapter helps out. Basically, our farm is theirs for the day as fourth graders, a couple hundred of them, have the ability to see cows and calves and jump inside a tractor, utilize the Farm Bureau safety trailer so they understand the hazards that can happen on a farm. Hutchinson Police Department shows up to do a kind of a 911 presentation as well. It is a really good event to get a message across to those young minds. On just a few numbers, Minnesota farmers generate each year, according to the Minnesota Department of Agriculture, $19 billion worth of commodities every year. This goes from corn, soybeans, wheat, beef, hogs, poultry, all the commodities added together. From here, those commodities generate tens of thousands of jobs and billions to our state's economy. This is a ripple effect from the work that all these farmers do every day. It all comes from the men and women and families that drive the tractors, deal with the livestock, and sometimes things go wrong. Hopefully, someday, what seems to be this pattern of monthly or sometimes weekly farm accidents in the state of Minnesota comes to a halt. It sure leaves an awful big hole in some of our valued farm families. So that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Thanks for sharing. All right, Sheila, item A under administration.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that information, Commissioner Wright.
Yep.
Item A, consider approval of the 2020 Pay Equity Implementation Report findings to be submitted to the State of Minnesota Management and Budget Division. Just to give you an update as well, because we've been working closely with the state, the preliminary review of the pay equity reporting is provided in your board packet. According to the pay equity coordinator from the state of Minnesota, Management and Budget Division, there may or may not be changes after review of this preliminary information. She stated that the full review of information submitted will occur mid-month in February. With the information provided, she stated it appears that we are in compliance and they don't foresee any issues, so that is very good news. The final report will be posted for viewing in required locations. Reports are due every 3 years on January 31st. We have been working with the state with being unaware that that report actually needs to go to county boards before it can be submitted to the state. When we met with several other counties in our region last Friday, they were also unaware, so we gave them a nice update on January 31st, and they are probably doing the same thing today. The state accepted a notification that our report would be submitted on February 4th, 2020 upon board approval. McLeod County's last report was submitted in January of 2017, and I do not believe that any counties have been fined for being out of compliance since around 2004. Upon approval of the reporting information, it will also be submitted to each union representing McLeod County employees, posted in the courthouse, and a copy will be given to the Glencoe Public Library.
So you need our approval to send it off, right?
I do.
All right.
I make that motion, Mr. Chair.
Motion by Commissioner Kruger, is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Polmeyer, any discussion? Hearing none, proceed to vote, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Thank you. Item B, consider approval for the collective bargaining agreement with Law Enforcement Labor Services, LELS, non-licensed sergeants for December 22nd, 2019 through December 17th, 2022, with health insurance reopener in December 2020 and December 2021 for plan years 2021 and 2022.
Any questions? Otherwise, there a motion to
Mr.
approve?
Chair, I move to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Szymanski, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Kruger, any discussion?
Mr. Chair, congratulations to our negotiating team for bringing this contract to a settlement.
Agreed. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Thank you. Item C, consider approval of the McLeod Sibley Health Insurance Group Joint Powers Agreement, which was included in your board packet as well.
Mr. Chair, I move the approval of the McLeod Sibley Health Insurance Group Joint Powers Agreement.
Motion by Commissioner Szymanski,
Second.
second by Commissioner Polmeyer, any discussion? Hearing none, proceed to vote, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Thank you. Item D, consider approval of the McLeod Sibley Health Insurance Group Joint Powers Bylaws, also included in your packet.
Mr. Chair, I move those bylaws as well.
Motion by Commissioner Szymanski, looking for a second.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Wright, any discussion? Hearing none, proceed to vote, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Thank you. Notifications, item E, notification of drainage policy review workshop to be held February 5th, 2020 at 1:00 p.m. at the McLeod County North Complex Conference Room, 2391 Hennepin Avenue in Glencoe. Item F, notification of 2020 Legislators' Day to be held February 7th, 2020 at 10:30 a.m. at the McLeod County Courthouse Boardroom, 830 11th Street, Glencoe. And item G, notification of McLeod County Workshop to be held on February 18th, 2020, following the county board meeting at the Glencoe City Center.
Thank you.
Thank
Open
you.
forum, anyone wish to address the board? Press relations, he didn't hang in.
They left.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
In the legislature, we used to call this a point of personal privilege, but former Commissioner Ray Byro will be celebrating his 60th wedding anniversary later this week.
Wow.
And his wife Carol, too.
All right. Looking for a motion to recess till the next board meeting, February 18th, 2020 at 9 a.m. at the Glencoe City Center.
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Kruger, second by Commissioner Polmeyer. Any discussion? Hearing none, proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, everyone.